Captain Jiho pressed his fingers against his tired eyes. The control room of the cargo ship New Dawn buzzed with broken equipment and flashing warning lights. Everything that could go wrong had gone wrong in the past 3 weeks. "Captain, the food maker is dead again," said Cook Yijun from behind him. The young man looked worried. His job was to feed 10 people for 3 more months, but their machines kept breaking down. Jiho nodded but did not turn around. He stared at the black screen where their navigation computer should show them the way home. Someone had put a virus in their system during their last stop at Kepler Station. Now they were lost in the Vegas sector, a place where pirates and slavers hunted for easy targets. "How much food do we have left?" Jiho asked. Yijun checked his tablet. "Maybe 2 weeks of real food. After that, we eat emergency bars and recycled protein." "Fuel status." Jiho called to engineer Minho. Minho looked up from under a control panel, grease on his face. 20%, Captain. The engines are working at half power because of damaged parts. We can't fix them without a proper shipyard. Jiho felt the weight of command on his shoulders. His crew trusted him to get them home safe. The New Dawn carried medical supplies and farming equipment for the new colonies on the edge of human space. People were waiting for their cargo. People would die without it. Communications Officer Somin suddenly sat up straight at her station. Her face went pale as she listened to her headphones. "Captain, I'm getting 3 ships on long-range sensors. They're coming fast." "Pirates?" asked Pilot Haun from her chair. Somin shook her head. "Worse. The computer says they're Kethvar Consortium vessels." A cold silence filled the room. Everyone knew about the Kethvar. They were not pirates who just took cargo. They took everything. Ships, cargo and people. They sold human crews as slaves to work in their mines and factories. The Kethvar called it debt recovery, but everyone knew the truth. "How long until they reach us?" Jiho asked. 30 minutes, Somin replied. Jiho looked around at his crew. Dr. Eunji had joined them from the medical bay. Navigation Officer Wu Jin stood beside his broken computer. Maintenance workers Hyunwoo and Jae-sung had stopped their repairs to listen. Even young apprentice Taemin had come to see what was happening. These were good people. Eunji had given up a high-paying job on Earth to bring medicine to poor colonies. Yijun sent most of his pay home to his sick mother. Minho had fixed their ship 100 times with nothing but spare parts and determination. They did not deserve to become slaves. "Options?" Jiho asked. Minho wiped his hands on a dirty cloth. "We can't outrun them. Our engines are too damaged. We can't fight them. They have 3 military ships with real weapons. We have mining tools and a cargo hauler. We could try to hide in the asteroid field," suggested Wu Jin. "Maybe they won't find us." Haun shook her head. "Their sensors are too good. They'll track our heat signature." Somin's radio crackled to life. A deep, alien voice spoke in accented human language. "Human cargo vessel, this is Commander Vextal of the Kethvar ship Prophet Seeker. We know you are damaged and helpless. Surrender now and we will treat you fairly." Jiho picked up the microphone. "This is Captain Jiho of the New Dawn. We are a legal cargo vessel carrying medical supplies to human colonies. We have done nothing wrong." The alien voice laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Wrong place, wrong time, human. Your ship is damaged in Kethvar space. By our laws you are salvage. Your cargo belongs to us. Your crew will work for us until they pay off the debt of rescue." "How long would that take?" Jiho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Most humans work for 20 or 30 years before they earn freedom. Some never do." Jiho looked at his crew. Eunji was 28 years old. Yijun was barely 25. Taemin was only 19. 30 years of slavery would destroy them. "You have 24 hours to think about it," Vextal continued. "Surrender peacefully and live. Fight and die. There is no third choice." The radio went silent. Jiho set down the microphone and turned to face his crew. Their faces showed fear but something else too. Anger. Determination. The same look his grandfather had described when talking about the old wars on Earth. "Captain," Minho said quietly, "my family survived the famine of 2157 by eating tree bark and making tools from scrap metal. They never gave up." Eunji stepped forward. "My grandmother hid from occupation forces for 3 years in the mountains. She said humans are strongest when they have nothing left to lose." Yijun nodded. "We're not just cargo haulers anymore, Captain. We're fighting for our freedom." Jiho felt something change in the air around them. His crew was scared, hungry, and facing impossible odds. But they were still human. Still the descendants of people who had survived ice ages with stone tools, who had crossed oceans in wooden boats, who had reached the stars despite every obstacle. 24 hours, Jiho said. The Kethvar think we'll spend that time being afraid. Instead, we're going to prepare. He walked to the ship's internal communications panel and activated the recording system. His voice echoed through every room of the New Dawn. This is Captain Jiho. If anyone ever finds this recording, know that when faced with slavery or death, we chose to fight. We chose to show the galaxy what happens when you corner a human ship with nothing left to lose. The crew gathered in the small mess hall where they usually ate their meals. Now the room felt like a war council. Captain Jiho looked at the faces around the metal table. These people had been cargo haulers and traders just yesterday. Today they had to become something else. Cook Yijun placed a plate in the center of the table. On it were 10 small brown bars that looked like old leather. This is what we have left for food, he said. Emergency protein bars mixed with recycled nutrients. Each person gets half a bar per day if we want to last 2 weeks. Dr. Unji opened her medical kit. Inside were bandages, basic medicines and surgical tools. I have enough supplies to treat minor injuries. But if someone gets seriously hurt, I can't help much. Engineer Minho spread out a map of their ship on the table. The engines are running at 40% power. The navigation computer is dead. The food makers are broken. The water recycling system works but barely. So we're hungry, lost and almost out of fuel, said Pilot Haon. Against 3 military ships with full weapons and supplies. Sounds about right, replied maintenance worker Hyunwoo with a grim smile. Jiho leaned forward. My grandfather told me stories about the Earth Wars. He said the strongest armies weren't the ones with the best weapons. They were the ones with nothing left to lose. Young apprentice Taemin raised his hand like he was still in school. Captain, what can we actually do? We don't have any real weapons. Minho picked up a tool from his belt. It was a plasma cutter used for ship repairs. This can cut through metal doors. What else can it cut? Space suits, said Unji quietly. Hull plates. Life support systems. We have mining charges and cargo hold 3, added maintenance worker Jae-sung. They're for breaking up asteroids. But an explosion is an explosion. Yijun looked thoughtful. I have industrial cleaning chemicals in the kitchen. Strong acid for cleaning fuel pipes. And the food preservatives we use are basically controlled chemicals. Medical supplies, Unji said, checking her inventory again. Some of these compounds are very reactive. In the wrong hands they could be dangerous. Jiho felt a spark of hope. We're not thinking like traders anymore. We need to think like survivors. Navigation officer Wu Jin studied the star charts on his broken computer. Captain, we're near the Theta asteroid field. Lots of rocks and metal debris. Good place to hide if you know what you're doing. I know those asteroids, Hone said. My family used to mine there before the big companies moved in. I can fly through spaces those Kethvar ships can't follow. Minho was already drawing diagrams. If we turn off all non-essential power, we can mask our heat signature. Make it harder for their sensors to track us. How do we fight 3 military ships? Asked Somin. We don't fight them directly, Jiho replied. We become a ghost. We hit them when they don't expect it, then disappear. The crew spent the next few hours taking apart their own ship. Minho showed them how to remove panels and wiring without damaging critical systems. Yijun gathered every chemical container from the kitchen and storage areas. Unji sorted her medical supplies into 2 groups. Things that could heal and things that could harm. Look at this, Hyunwoo called from under a control panel. He held up a bundle of copper wiring. We can use this to make electric traps. Taemin was reading technical manuals on his tablet. Captain, it says here that mining charges can be modified. We can turn them into proximity mines. Can you do that safely? Jiho asked Minho. The engineer nodded. It's dangerous but possible. We just need to change the trigger mechanism. Jae-sung found metal pipes in the maintenance shop. These could be projectile weapons if we pressurize them with ship's air. Like spear guns, Hone said. My grandfather made those for fishing. As they worked, something changed in the crew. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with determination. Yijun started whistling while he mixed chemicals. Unji worked with steady hands, never looking worried. Minho explained technical details with the patience of a teacher. Captain, Somin said from her communication station. I'm picking up Kethvar radio chatter. They're talking about selling our cargo before they even capture us. What are they saying about us? Jiho asked. Somin listened to her headphones. Commander Vextal is telling his crew that humans are weak traders who will surrender easily. He says we're probably crying and begging for mercy right now. The crew looked at each other. Then Hyunwoo started laughing. Soon everyone was laughing even though nothing was funny. It was the laughter of people who had decided to fight impossible odds. Let them think that, Jiho said. Let them believe we're helpless. It will make them careless. Minho held up a modified mining charge. First weapon ready, Captain. This will punch a hole in their hull. Yijun showed them a container of mixed chemicals. This will eat through their air recycling systems. Unji had prepared syringes filled with sedatives. For close combat if it comes to that. Jiho looked around at his crew. They were thin from hunger, tired from long hours and facing certain death. But their eyes were bright with purpose. The Kethvar think they're hunting a cargo ship full of frightened traders, he said. They have no idea they're about to face something much more dangerous. What's that? Asked Taemin. Humans with nothing left to lose. The new dawn drifted silently through the asteroid field like a dead ship. All lights were off. All heat sources were shut down. Inside, the crew worked in darkness, using only small hand lights when needed. Captain Jiho watched the scanner screen. 3 green dots showed the positions of the Kethvar ships. They were spreading out, searching for the human vessel among the floating rocks. Patrol ship coming this way, whispered Communications Officer Somin. She was listening to enemy radio chatter through her headphones. Pilot Haun's hands moved carefully over her controls. The new dawn slipped behind a large asteroid, moving like a shadow. Her grandmother had taught her to fly in these rocks when she was just a child. Every asteroid was like an old friend. Target acquired, Minho said quietly. He was watching a small Kethvar patrol craft through a telescope. The enemy ship was alone, separated from the others. Jiho nodded. Execute. Haun fired the ship's thrusters for just 3 seconds. The new dawn shot out from behind the asteroid like an arrow. Minho launched 2 modified mining charges from the cargo bay doors. The explosives flew through space toward the surprised patrol ship. The first charge hit the Kethvar ship's engine section. The second punched through their communication array. The patrol craft spun helplessly, lights flickering, unable to call for help or move. Pull back, Jiho ordered. Haun dove the new dawn into a cluster of small asteroids. The ship disappeared again, leaving the damaged Kethvar vessel floating alone in space. Commander Vexdal's angry voice crackled over the radio. Patrol 3, report your status. What happened? Only static answered. This was the pattern for 6 days. The new dawn would appear suddenly, strike hard, then vanish into the asteroid maze. Each attack was different. Sometimes they used the mining charges as missiles. Sometimes they released clouds of Yijun's homemade acid that ate through hull metal. Once they used ship's compressed air to fire metal pipes like spears at enemy sensors. The crew was getting weaker. Cook Yijun's emergency protein bars tasted like cardboard and contained barely enough nutrients to keep them alive. Everyone had lost weight. Dr. Unji gave them vitamin shots to prevent sickness, but their faces were getting thin and their movements slower. But their spirits were strong. Another target, reported Navigation Officer Wu Jin. He pointed at his scope. A Kethvar fighter was searching near the edge of the asteroid field. This time Engineer Minho had prepared something special. He had connected the ship's kitchen chemicals to the air recycling system. When released, the mixture would create a cloud of poisonous gas. Haun piloted them above the enemy fighter, using a large asteroid to hide their approach. When they were directly overhead, Minho opened the chemical release. The cloud of yellow-green gas fell onto the Kethvar fighter like deadly rain. Emergency alarms sounded on the enemy ship as their air became toxic. The fighter tried to escape, but their engines choked on the chemical cloud and died. 2 ships down, said maintenance worker Hyunwoo with satisfaction. 1 to go. But the main Kethvar ship, the Prophet Seeker, was not so easy to catch. Commander Vextal had learned to be careful. He kept his ship moving, surrounded by protective drones, never staying in one place long enough for an attack. The human ghost is making us look like fools. Vexdal's voice screamed over intercepted radio communications. Find them. Destroy them. I don't care if the cargo is damaged. Young apprentice Taemin was monitoring Kethvar communications. Captain, they're getting desperate. Commander Vextal is calling for reinforcements from the nearest base. How long until help arrives? Jiho asked. 3 days, Taemin replied. Jiho looked at his crew. They were eating their final emergency rations. Water recycling was operating at dangerous levels. The ship's life support systems were failing one by one. They had maybe 2 days left before critical systems shut down completely. We can't wait 3 days, Unji said quietly. The crew is approaching the limits of human endurance. Yijun held up his last protein bar. It was green with mold, but he ate it anyway. I've been thinking about my grandmother's stories, he said. She told me that the hungriest wolf is the most dangerous. What do you mean? Asked Jae-sung. We're not just hiding and striking anymore, Yijun replied. We're dying slowly. Maybe it's time to stop being ghosts and start being wolves. Haun nodded. Direct assault on the Prophet Seeker. All or nothing. Minho was already checking his remaining weapons. I have 4 mining charges left. Enough chemical weapons for 1 major attack. And I've been working on something special. What kind of special? Jiho asked. Minho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Remember our cargo? Rare earth minerals for colony electronics. Very pure. Very reactive. I've been wondering what would happen if we made them into a really big bomb. The crew looked at each other. They were hungry, exhausted, and running out of time. But the same determination that had kept them fighting was still there. One final attack, Jiho decided. We make them regret the day they decided to hunt humans. Outside, the Prophet Seeker continued its patrol, searching for the ghost ship that had embarrassed the mighty Kethvar consortium. Commander Vextal did not know that the ghost was about to become something much worse. The wolf was ready to show its teeth. The new dawn hung in space like a dying animal. All around the ship, warning lights flashed red. The air recycling system made horrible grinding noises. Water supplies were down to emergency levels. The crew had not eaten real food in 3 days. Captain Jiho sat in his command chair looking at his people. Dr. Unji was giving vitamin shots to keep everyone conscious. Cook Yijun had lost so much weight that his uniform hung loose on his body. Young apprentice Taemin could barely stay awake at his station. But their eyes still burned with determination. Engineer Minho crawled out from under a control panel, grease and sweat covering his face. It's ready, Captain. The cargo bay is now one giant electromagnetic pulse bomb. Jiho nodded. Minho had spent 2 days converting their cargo of rare earth minerals into a weapon that would send out a wave of energy, destroying all electronic systems within 10 kilometers. It was brilliant. It was desperate. It was probably suicide. Will our ship survive the pulse? Asked pilot Haon. Minho wiped his hands on a dirty cloth. I've wrapped all our critical systems in metal sheeting from the kitchen and maintenance areas. Like a protective cage. It should work. Should work, repeated Communications Officer Somin. It's the best I can do with spare parts and hope, Minho replied. Navigation Officer Wu Jin looked up from his scanner. The Prophet Seeker is moving toward the outer edge of the asteroid field. Commander Vextal is trying to draw us into open space where his reinforcements can find us. Perfect, Jiho said. He's making this easier. Maintenance worker Hyunwoo was checking the ship's structural integrity. Captain, our hull is cracked in 6 places. The engines are held together with emergency welds. If we ram their ship at full speed, we might break apart before we hit them. Then we better hit them hard the first time, Jiho replied. The crew began their final preparations. Unji prepared medical supplies for the aftermath, assuming anyone survived. Yijun distributed the last of their water rations. Jae-sung and Hyunwoo secured everything that could move during violent acceleration. Taemin was monitoring Kethvar communications. Captain, Commander Vextal is talking to his crew. He says they're going to capture us alive and make an example of us. He wants other humans to see what happens when they resist. Let him think that, Jiho said. Right up until the moment we prove him wrong. Haon started the engines. They coughed and wheezed like an old man climbing stairs, but they worked. The new dawn began moving slowly out of the asteroid field. Human vessel, Commander Vextal's voice came over the radio. Finally ready to surrender? You've caused enough trouble. Come quietly and we'll be merciful. Jiho picked up the microphone. Commander Vextal, this is Captain Jiho. I have a message for you. I'm listening, human. We are the crew of the New Dawn. We are hungry, tired, and outnumbered. Our ship is falling apart. We have no chance of winning a fair fight. Vextal laughed. Then you're ready to be reasonable. No, Jiho continued. We're ready to show you what humans do when they have nothing left to lose. He switched the radio to broadcast on all frequencies so every ship in the sector could hear. This is human vessel New Dawn. We do not surrender. We do not yield. We do not beg for mercy. When you corner a human ship that's running low on supplies, you don't get a helpless victim. You get something much more dangerous. What's that? Vextal asked, his voice no longer amused. You get humans with nothing left to lose. Jiho nodded to Haon. She pushed the engines to full power. The New Dawn accelerated toward the Prophet Seeker like a missile. They're trying to ram us, someone shouted on the Kethvar ship. All weapons fire. Energy beams and projectiles flew through space at the approaching human ship. Most missed. The few that hit bounced off improvised armor plating that Minho had welded to the hull. The distance closed rapidly. 5 kilometers. 4. 3. All crew prepare for impact. Jiho shouted. The Prophet Seeker tried to turn away, but it was too late. The New Dawn struck the alien ship's side like a hammer hitting an egg. At the moment of impact, Minho triggered the electromagnetic pulse. A wave of invisible energy exploded outward from the cargo bay. Every electronic system on both ships died instantly. Lights went out. Engines stopped. Life support systems shut down. The universe became silent except for the sound of twisting metal. But the New Dawn was still alive. Minho's improvised shielding had worked. Emergency power flickered on. Basic life support resumed. The Prophet Seeker was not so lucky. The massive alien warship drifted helplessly in space, completely dead. Jiho struggled to his feet. His head was bleeding from the impact. Around him, his crew was picking themselves up from the floor. Everyone was hurt but alive. Status report, he called out. Engines at 15%, Haon reported. But we can move. Communications working, Soman said. Broadcasting emergency signals. Medical bay is damaged but functional, Unji added. No critical injuries. Minho looked at his readings. The Prophet Seeker is completely powerless. No engines, no weapons, no life support. Through the viewports, they could see Kethvar emergency lights flickering inside the alien ship. Commander Vexdal's crew was trapped in a metal tomb, waiting for rescue that might never come. The New Dawn slowly pulled away from the wreckage, limping through space on damaged engines but still flying. Still human. Still free. 3 hours after the electromagnetic pulse, rescue ships arrived from all directions. Human patrol vessels, neutral trade ships, and even some Kethvar Consortium rescue craft came to help. The battle had been broadcast across the entire sector, and everyone wanted to see what had happened. Captain Jiho sat in the medical bay of a human rescue ship, watching Dr. Park treat his injured crew. They were all thin, weak and hurt but alive. Through the viewport he could see the New Dawn being towed by a salvage ship. His cargo vessel looked like it had been through a war, which it had. Captain, said the rescue ship's commander, a woman named Captain Lee. What you did out there is being talked about on every space station in 3 sectors. How did you defeat 3 Kethvar military ships with a cargo hauler? Jiho looked at his crew. Engineer Minho was getting his broken arm fixed. Cook Yijun was eating real food for the first time in days. Young apprentice Taemin was sleeping peacefully after being given proper medical care. We didn't defeat them, Jiho said quietly. We just refused to give up. Captain Lee shook her head. The Prophet Seeker is completely dead in space. The 2 patrol ships are disabled beyond repair. Commander Vextal had to be rescued by his own people. He's telling everyone who will listen that humans are not what they seem. Through the medical bay windows, Jiho could see the Kethvar commander being transferred to a prison transport. Vextal looked different now. Gone was the confident alien who had demanded surrender. Now he looked like someone who had learned a hard lesson. What's he saying exactly? Jiho asked. He's warning other Kethvar crews to never corner a human ship that's running low on supplies, Captain Lee replied. He says hunger doesn't make humans weak. It makes them dangerous. 2 weeks later, the New Dawn limped into Port Haven, the space station that served the outer colonies. News crews were waiting. Government officials wanted interviews. Military officers studied their tactics. But Jiho and his crew just wanted to deliver their cargo. Captain Jiho, called a reporter as they unloaded medical supplies. How does it feel to be famous across the galaxy? We're not famous, Jiho replied, carrying a box of antibiotics. We're cargo haulers doing our job. The colonies received their medical supplies and farming equipment only 3 weeks behind schedule. Colony Administrator Kim thanked them personally. These medicines will save hundreds of lives, she said. Thank you for not giving up. Pilot Haon smiled. We're human. We don't know how to give up. The story spread across space like wildfire. In bars on distant stations, traders told the tale of the ghost ship that had haunted the Kethvar. In military academies, officers studied the tactics used by desperate humans. In corporate offices, shipping companies began training their crews for emergency situations. 6 months later, Engineer Minho was fixing the New Dawn's engines when Communications Officer Somin called from the bridge. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said. Jiho joined her at the communication station. Somin was listening to a conversation between two alien traders. "Are you crazy?" one alien was saying. "That's a human cargo ship with engine problems. Stay away from them." "But they're disabled," the other replied. "Easy salvage. Have you never heard of the New Dawn incident? Rule number 1 of space piracy. Never corner a human ship that's running low on supplies. They become something else when they're desperate." "What do you mean?" "I mean they stop being traders and become hunters. They turn their own ship into a weapon. They make bombs from kitchen supplies. They disappear into asteroid fields and strike like ghosts." Commander Vextal learned this lesson the hard way. Somin turned off the radio and looked at Jiho. "Captain, we're becoming a legend." Jiho shrugged. "Good. Maybe it will keep other crews from going through what we did." The New Dawn completed many more supply runs over the following years. They were offered military escorts, upgraded weapons and better ships. They turned down all of these offers. "We don't need protection," Cook Yijun would say. "We've proven we can take care of ourselves." The rule became official policy in several trading guilds: never corner a human ship running low on supplies. It was taught in space navigation schools. It was written into piracy warnings. It became as well known as basic safety procedures. Years later, a young alien student asked her teacher about the rule during a galactic history class. "Teacher, why are humans so dangerous when they're low on supplies?" she asked. The teacher, an old Kethvar who had served in their military, thought carefully before answering. "Most species become weaker when they lack resources," he said. "They surrender to preserve what little they have left. But humans are different. When they have nothing left to lose, they become creative. They turn cooking supplies into weapons. They make bombs from cargo. They use their own ship as a missile. They stop following the normal rules of engagement." "Is that bad?" the student asked. "Not bad," the teacher replied. "Just very, very dangerous. Humans with full supplies are traders and diplomats. Humans with empty supplies are something else entirely. They become survivors. And survivors will do anything to stay alive and protect their people." The student made a note in her textbook next to the lesson title: "Why the Galaxy Learned to Respect Human Cargo Ships." In deep space, the New Dawn continued its endless journey, carrying supplies to colonies that needed them. The crew was older now but still human, still determined, still ready to prove that cornering them would be the worst mistake any enemy could make. The rule had been learned the hard way.